December 16, 1944, 5:30 hours. The Ardennes Forest, on the border between Belgium and Germany. The world is not black and white, but a spectrum of grays suffocated by a freezing mist. The temperature hovers near zero, a damp, biting cold that seeps through wool coats and settles deep in the marrow of the bone. In the pre-dawn darkness, the silence is heavy, almost physical, pressing down on the pine trees, which stand like silent sentinels over a landscape that hasn't seen the fury of war in months. This is the Ghost Front, a place where combat fatigue units are sent to rest and where green replacements are sent to acclimate to the quiet routines of trench life. On a small, elongated hill known as a ridge, overlooking the tiny hamlet of Lanzerath, 18 men lie in frozen foxholes. They are the intelligence and reconnaissance platoon of the 394th Infantry Regiment, 99th Infantry Division. They are young, their average age barely 20, and they are tired, not from fighting, but from the relentless, gnawing boredom of the static line. The smell of pine resin mixes with the faint, metallic scent of gun oil and the damp wool of their uniforms. In the darkness, a single match flares, illuminating cupped hands and the momentary glow of a cigarette, before vanishing back into the gray. They do not know that the ground beneath them is vibrating. They do not know that just a few miles east, the largest assembly of German armor and infantry since the invasion of Russia is winding up its engines. They are 18 boys on a hill, about to be hit by a tidal wave of steel and fanaticism designed to break the back of the Western Alliance. To understand the gravity of this moment, one must look beyond the frozen foxholes of Lanzerath and into the mind of the enemy. By late 1944, the Third Reich is a crumbling edifice. The Allies have liberated France, crossed the borders of the fatherland, and are poised to strike at the industrial heart of the Ruhr. The German army is bled white, their fuel reserves are critically low, and their cities are burning ruins. To the American High Command, the war is effectively over. It is merely a matter of logistics, a slow grind to Berlin. General Eisenhower and his commanders believe the Germans are incapable of offensive action. They believe the Ardennes, with its dense forests and narrow, winding roads, is impenetrable to heavy armor in winter. They are wrong. Adolf Hitler, in a fit of desperate mania, has conceived Unternehmen Wacht am Rhein, Operation Watch on the Rhine. His plan is a lightning strike through the weak American center in the Ardennes, crossing the Meuse River and capturing the port of Antwerp. It is a gamble of astronomical proportions, designed to split the British and American armies, encircle them, and force a negotiated peace. Success depends entirely on speed. The Panzers must move day and night. They must capture American fuel stocks to keep moving. And crucially, they must break through the Lossheim Gap within the first 24 hours. The timeline is rigid. Any delay, even of a few hours, is fatal to the German plan. And standing directly in the throat of the Lossheim Gap, unknowingly holding the keys to the entire offensive, is a single platoon of 18 Americans commanded by a 20-year-old lieutenant named Lyle Bogue. The contrast between the opposing forces on this morning is absolute. The German soldiers gathering in the mist are a mix of hardened veterans and young zealots. Leading the assault on this sector is the 3rd Fallschirmjäger Division, paratroopers who have been converted into elite infantry. They are confident, driven by a desperate patriotism and the promise that this offensive will turn the tide. They have been told that the Americans in this sector are weak, demoralized, and thinly spread. They expect to sweep through the village of Lanzerath without breaking stride, clearing the road for the monsters waiting behind them. The 1st SS Panzer Division, led by the ruthless Joachim Pieper. The SS men are the tip of the spear, sitting in their Tiger and Panther tanks, impatient, checking their watches, fueled by Pervidin and ideology. They perceive the Americans as soft, spoiled by their logistics, reliant on air power and artillery, incapable of standing toe-to-toe with the Aryan soldier in the freezing mud. Conversely, the men of the I and R platoon are an oddity. They are not frontline infantry. They are scouts, trained to observe and report, not to hold ground. They have arrived in this sector only days prior. They are well fed compared to their enemy, equipped with the best semi-automatic rifle of the war, the M1 Garand, and backed by the immense industrial output of the United States. Yet, in this moment, they are isolated. Their radio wires are cut by the opening artillery barrage. Their support is miles away. They are alone. The abundance of America is represented here not by tanks or planes, but by the sheer amount of ammunition they have stockpiled in their foxholes, crates of 30 caliber rounds, grenades, and belts for their 50 caliber Jeep-mounted machine gun. This brass ammunition, cold to the touch, piled in the snow, will become the currency of their survival. At 6, the silence is shattered. The horizon erupts in flashes of artificial lightning as hundreds of German artillery pieces open fire. The barrage is deafening, a chaotic symphony of cracking timber and exploding earth. The trees around Lanzerath are sheared in half, sending deadly splinters raining down on the dugouts. Lieutenant Lyle Boak, a calm, serious young officer who had earned his commission at 18, moves among his men, checking their positions. He realizes immediately that this is not a raid. This is an invasion. When the shelling stops, a terrifying silence returns, soon replaced by the sound of boots on pavement. Emerging from the fog, marching casually up the road from the east, comes the first wave of the 9th Fallschirmjäger Regiment. They are marching in columns, rifles slung over their shoulders, talking, laughing. They have no idea the Americans are there. They believe the artillery has annihilated any resistance, or that the Americans have already fled. Up on the ridge, 18 hearts hammer against ribs. Boak signals his men to wait. He holds them back, displaying a tactical discipline that defies his age. He waits until the Germans are almost directly underneath their positions. He waits until he can see the color of their eyes. Then, the command is given. The ridge explodes. The sudden violence is absolute. The 50 caliber machine gun tears into the German column. The M1 Garands, firing semi-automatically, pour a withering volume of fire into the exposed paratroopers. The ping of the ejecting clips rings out rhythmically, a metallic counterpoint to the screams below. The Germans, caught completely off guard, scramble for cover, leaving dozens of dead and wounded on the road. The arrogance of the Fallschirmjäger evaporates in seconds, replaced by confusion and shock. They cannot see where the fire is coming from. The muzzle flashes are hidden by the dense pine forest and the elevation of the ridge. The Germans believe they have walked into a fortified bunker complex held by at least a battalion of troops. They do not know it is 18 boys and a single heavy machine gun. As the sun begins to rise, struggling to pierce the leaden sky, the reality of the situation sets in for the Germans. They regroup and launch a second attack. This time, they fan out, attempting to flank the position. But Boak has positioned his men brilliantly. The foxholes have overlapping fields of fire. Every time a German soldier exposes himself, he is met with precise, aimed fire. The men of the I and R platoon are not spraying bullets blindly. They are picking their targets. They are utilizing the American doctrine of marksmanship, honed in training camps back in the States, applied now with desperate necessity. One of the soldiers, operating the 50 caliber, watches as a wave of gray uniforms surges up the hill. He depresses the butterfly trigger, the heavy gun bucking against his shoulder, sending streams of tracers into the mist. The snow around the foxholes begins to stain black with carbon and soot. And steadily, the pile of spent brass casings grows. It is a shimmering mound of gold against the white snow, a testament to the industrial might that put these weapons in their hands, but also a ticking clock. Every casing on the ground is one less round in the fight. By mid-morning, the situation has stalemated, but time is on the side of the Americans, even if they don't know it. Down in the village, the commander of the German paratroopers is furious. He is under immense pressure. The radio crackles with demands from the rear. Why is the road not clear? Where are the tanks? He cannot admit that his entire regiment is being held up by a handful of men. He reports that he is facing a fierce resistance from a major American force. This lie, born of embarrassment, travels up the chain of command, causing the German heavy armor to halt and wait for the infantry to clear the fortifications. The mighty King Tigers and Panthers, the Wunderwaffen of the Reich, sit idling on the narrow roads miles back, burning precious fuel, their engines, coughing white smoke into the cold air. This is the friction of war. The meticulous German timetable, calculated to the minute, is bleeding out on the slopes of Lanzerath Ridge. The battle evolves into a contest of will. The Germans launch a frontal assault. They charge up the open slope, screaming, bayonets fixed. It is a terrifying, primal sight. The Americans, dug into the frozen earth, feel the vibration of hundreds of boots. The fear is a physical weight in their guts, a cold stone that threatens to paralyze. But the training takes over. The muscle memory of reloading. The ping of the Garand. The chaotic noise of the battlefield is punctuated by the shouts of Bogue, directing fire, moving men to plug gaps, calling for artillery support that never comes. The radio operator tries frantically to reach regiment, to reach division, to reach anyone. Unit in heavy contact. Request fire mission. Coordinates. But the radio is dead, or the frequencies are jammed, or the headquarters has already been overrun. They are screaming into the void. This isolation creates a profound psychological shift. In the beginning, they fought as soldiers following orders. Now, as the hours drag on, they fight for each other. The ideology of democracy, of freedom, of the Atlantic Charter, all of that dissolves. It is replaced by the man to the left and the man to the right. It is a brotherhood forged in the crucible of impending death. The Germans, realizing that frontal assaults are suicide, begin to use mortars. The thump-whoosh-crack of the rounds landing on the ridge sends shrapnel slicing through the trees. The Americans are pinned down. The wooden logs covering their foxholes splinter. Men are wounded. The medic, crawling through the mud and snow, moves from hole to hole, applying tourniquets and morphine. The snow is now a tapestry of red blood, white eyes, and the endless, glittering brass. The brass is the constant. It represents the only thing keeping the gray wave at bay. As long as the brass piles up, they are alive. By early afternoon, the sheer weight of numbers begins to tell. The Germans have identified the flanks of the American position. They begin to infiltrate through the woods, crawling on their bellies, using the dead ground to get close. The Americans are running low on ammunition. The .50 caliber has gone silent, its barrel overheated, its ammo belt empty. The men are now sharing clips of rifle ammunition, throwing them between foxholes. Last clip, someone shouts. The desperation is palpable, but still, they do not run. This is the crucial transformation. These men, who days ago were thinking about Christmas packages and letters from home, have become Spartans. They have transcended the fear of death, because there is no place to run to. Behind them is only the empty forest and the certainty of capture or death in the open. Here, in their holes, they have purpose. Historically, this moment is supported by the testimony of the German officers captured later. They expressed disbelief when they learned the truth. One German major, upon seeing the 18 prisoners, asked, "Where is the rest of the battalion?" When Bogue pointed to his battered, exhausted men and said, "This is it," the German officer couldn't compute it. It defied all military logic. The German doctrine relied on the superiority of the collective, the machine. The American defense relied on the initiative of the individual. Each man on that ridge was fighting his own war, making his own decisions on when to fire, when to duck, when to conserve ammo. As the winter sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting long, purple shadows across the blood-stained snow, the end approaches. The Germans, finally realizing the small size of the force, launch a massive, coordinated attack from 3 sides. They pour over the crest of the ridge. The fighting becomes hand-to-hand. Rifle butts, bayonets, fists. It is ugly and desperate. Lieutenant Bogue, his weapon empty, is pulled from his foxhole. The men are overwhelmed. The firing dies down, replaced by the harsh shouting of German commands. Hand hoch, hand hoch. The 18 Americans, wounded, exhausted, deafened, stand with their hands in the air. They look at the carnage around them. The field in front of their position is littered with hundreds of German casualties. The snow is carpeted with the brass casings of the thousands of rounds they fired. The immediate feeling is one of failure, as they are prodded down the hill with rifle barrels in their backs, while Boak feels a crushing weight of guilt. He believes he has failed his mission. He believes he has sacrificed his men for nothing. He does not know that it is nearly sunset. He does not know that the lead elements of the 1st SS Panzer Division, commanded by Pieper, are only now rolling into Lanzerath. Pieper is furious. He screams at the Fallschirmjäger commander. The delay is catastrophic. The 20 hours lost here at Lanzerath means that the Americans have had time to blow the bridges ahead. It means reinforcements have been rushed to the critical crossroads of St. Vith and Bastogne. It means the cloud cover is breaking, bringing the Allied Air Force into play. The Americans are marched past the idling Tiger tanks. The exhaust fumes choke them. They look into the faces of the SS men, faces of frustration and rage. The contrast is stark. The Americans, defeated and captured, are the victors of time. The Germans, technically the conquerors of the hill, are the losers of the campaign. The recurring image of the brass casings remains up on the ridge, slowly being covered by a fresh falling snow. Those casings are a testament to the industrial capacity of America, yes, but more so to the sheer stubbornness of the American soldier. In the years that followed, the Battle of Lanzerath Ridge would be studied by historians as the critical turning point of the Battle of the Bulge. But for the men who lived it, it was not a strategic study. It was a memory of cold, of fear, and of the incredible endurance of the human spirit. The transformation was permanent. They entered the war as boys, unsure of their place in the chaos. They left that ridge as men who had stared into the face of the apocalypse and held it back for 20 hours. They had broken the timeline of the 1,000-year Reich. The epilogue of this story is not found in the maps of generals, but in the silence of the forest today. If you go to Lanzerath now, the foxholes are still there, shallow depressions in the earth, softened by time and overgrown with moss. The trees have grown back, tall and straight. But if you dig down, beneath the layers of decaying pine needles and loam, you will still find them, the rusted, corroded brass casings. They lie there in the dark earth, silent witnesses to a day when 18 Americans stood against an empire. They remind us that history doesn't turn on the decisions of dictators in stone palaces, but on the courage of ordinary individuals in muddy holes, holding the line when the world expects them to break. Freedom is not an abstract concept. It is a fragile thing, bought with time, paid for in brass and blood, and held together by the unyielding resolve of those who refuse to surrender the high ground.